In the summer of 1324, a procession appears on the desert road approaching the gates of Cairo. The Egyptian guards on the walls have never seen anything like it. The column stretches for miles. 60,000 men, 12,000 slaves, 80 camels, each loaded with bars of gold so heavy that the animals stagger under the weight. 500 attendants ride at the head of the train, each holding a staff of solid gold weighing 4 pounds. The dust the procession kicks up shimmers in the sun because so much gold dust leaks from the saddlebags that the road behind them sparkles. At the center rides a man in white robes, mounted on a richly draped horse. He is approximately 44 years old. His name is Mansa Musa, and the empire he rules sits on more gold than anyone outside Africa has ever conceived of. Within 3 months, he will give away enough of it in Cairo to collapse the economy of the entire eastern Mediterranean. And within a single century after his death, the world outside Africa will manage to forget him almost completely. The land of gold. Mansa Musa is born around 1280 in the heart of West Africa, in an empire most people in Europe and the Middle East have only heard about as a rumor. The Mali Empire stretches across territory larger than Western Europe, from the Atlantic Ocean to the bend of the Niger River, covering parts of what are now Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mauritania. Its population is somewhere between 20 and 40 million, larger than any single kingdom in Europe at the time. And it sits on top of approximately half of the world's known gold supply. For centuries, gold has flowed north from West African mines across the Sahara on camel caravans into North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. Europeans pay for it with salt, copper, fine cloth, and slaves. The Mali emperors tax every gram of it that crosses their territory. By the time Musa comes to the throne in 1312, he is sitting on a fortune unlike anything any single ruler outside East Asia possesses. Modern historians estimate his personal wealth somewhere between $400 and $800 billion in today's terms. By many calculations, no individual in recorded history has controlled more personal wealth. Not Rockefeller, not Carnegie, not Bezos, not Musk. Mansa means King of Kings. Musa is the 10th man to hold the title. He is also, like the merchants he taxes, a devout Muslim. The 5th pillar of Islam requires every adult who can afford the journey to perform the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, once in their lifetime. Mansa Musa can afford it more spectacularly than anyone alive. The longest caravan. He spends years organizing the trip. The route runs roughly 5,000 kilometers each way, west from the capital Niamey, across the southern edge of the Sahara, northeast through what is now Algeria and Libya to Egypt, and from there overland to the holy cities. The caravan he assembles is the largest ever recorded crossing the Sahara. 60,000 people, 12,000 of them slaves, each carrying about 4 pounds of solid gold bars. 80 camels carrying between 50 and 300 pounds of gold dust each. The rest of the train carries food, water, tents, horses, hawks, musicians, scholars, doctors, wives, and concubines. According to Arab historians who would later interview people who had seen it pass, the column was so long that when its head reached an oasis, its tail had not yet broken camp at the previous one. They depart in 1324 and march for months. They cross the Sahara not because it is the fast route, there isn't a fast route, but because Musa wants the world to see them. Every city they pass becomes a stage. They distribute gold along the way to the poor, to local rulers, to mosques and madrasas. By the time they enter Egypt in July, The caravan has already given away enough bullion to make a minor king. And then they reach Cairo, 3 months in Cairo. Cairo in 1324 is the wealthiest city in the Islamic world. It is larger than Paris and more crowded than Constantinople. It is the headquarters of the Mamluk Sultanate, the most powerful Muslim military state of the era. Its sultan is Al-Nasir Muhammad, a man not used to having visitors who outshine him. Mansa Musa initially refuses to meet him. Diplomatic protocol requires the guest to prostrate himself before the sultan in his own throne room, and Musa announces that he will not bow before any man, only before Allah. The Mamluk court is outraged. For days, the two sides negotiate. Eventually, Musa agrees to enter the audience hall, but says when he prostrates, he is bowing to God, not the sultan, who happens to be in the same room. The compromise holds. They meet. Al-Nasir Muhammad is reportedly stunned by his guest. Musa gives him 50,000 dinars, a king's ransom, simply as a courtesy gift. The Egyptian officials he meets each receive bags of gold. The poor of Cairo line the streets, and Musa orders his attendants to distribute gold dust to anyone who comes near them. For 3 months, he stays in the city, holding court like a visiting emperor, attending Friday prayers, touring the markets, buying every luxury Cairo can produce, silks, books, slaves, exotic animals, and paying for everything in gold. By the time he leaves in October for Mecca, no one in Egypt knows it yet, but he has just destroyed the economy. The year gold was worthless. Cairo is a gold-based economy. Coins, jewelry, tax payments, savings, all of them depend on the value of gold relative to other goods. Mansa Musa has dumped so much new gold into the city in 3 months that its value has cratered. Prices for everything else explode. Bread, oil, cloth, and rent double, then triple. Egyptian merchants whose wealth is held in gold see their fortunes evaporate. Egyptian merchants whose wealth is held in goods become rich overnight. The Arab historian al-Umari, writing some years later, interviews people who had seen Musa's caravan and records what they told him. He says the inflation lasted at least a decade. Some estimates suggest gold did not recover its pre-1324 value in Egypt for closer to 12 years. Mansa Musa learns about the disaster on his return journey through Cairo in 1325, after completing the pilgrimage and visiting the Prophet's tomb at Medina. He is horrified. The most generous act of his life has impoverished thousands of people. He tries to undo it. He goes to every gold lender in the city and borrows gold at high interest rates, not because he needs it, but to remove gold from circulation and let the price recover. It is the first known instance in history of a single individual deliberately manipulating a commodity market across an entire region. It does not entirely work. Cairo's economy stabilizes only slowly, but Musa returns home as a slightly poorer man and a global legend, the city of scholars. On his way back to Mali, Musa convinces an Andalusian Muslim poet and architect named Abu Ishaq al-Sahili to return with him. He pays him roughly 400 pounds of gold for the journey alone. Once home, Musa commissions al-Sahili to design a mosque in Timbuktu, a small Saharan trading town that has been gradually growing in importance under Mali's protection. The mosque, Jingwarebe, is built of mud brick reinforced with palm wood. It still stands today, 700 years later. Beside it, Musa builds a university, the Zankore Madrasa. He pays scholars in gold to come from across the Muslim world and teach. He buys books, hand-copied manuscripts that cost more than horses, and brings them home by the camel load from Cairo and Mecca. Within a generation, Timbuktu has the largest collection of books in the Islamic world. By the 15th century, it is one of the great intellectual capitals of the planet, with as many as 25,000 students studying law, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and theology. Travelers report that in Timbuktu, books fetch a higher price than any other commodity. On his return journey, Musa also annexes the Songhai city of Gao. By 1325, the Mali Empire is at its greatest extent. It is the wealthiest, the largest, and the most culturally vibrant state in Africa. The forgotten king, Mansa Musa, dies around 1337. He is succeeded by his son Mansa Magan, who reigns briefly and badly. The empire begins a slow decline. Within 50 years, the rising Songhai Empire to the east starts picking off Mali's eastern provinces. By 1468, the Songhai sack Timbuktu and seize its libraries. By the time the Portuguese reach the West African coast in the late 15th century, the Mali Empire is a memory. They never see Musa's gold. They never reach Timbuktu. They build slave forts on the coast instead. But for a brief period after the Hajj, Mansa Musa is one of the most famous men alive. In 1375, an Italian Majorcan cartographer named Cresques Abraham draws him into the Catalan Atlas, a stunning illustrated world map. In the African quarter, larger than any other king depicted, Musa sits cross-legged on a throne, holding a golden orb in one hand and a scepter in the other, his face turned toward an approaching Arab merchant on a camel. The label beside him reads, "The richest and noblest king in all this land." Then Europe loses interest. As maritime trade rises and the Atlantic opens new sources of gold in the Americas, the trans-Saharan routes wither. The Songhai who replaced Mali are eventually conquered by invading Moroccans. The Moroccans are pushed out by Tuareg raiders. The libraries of Timbuktu are looted, scattered, hidden, and only partially preserved. In our own century, jihadists in Mali tried to burn what was left. Some manuscripts were saved by ordinary citizens who smuggled them out and hid them in their homes. Today, scholars estimate that Mansa Musa's personal fortune, adjusted for the gold he owned and the empire he ruled, exceeds anything held by any individual since. Bill Gates and Elon Musk combined would not match his net worth. He may, by any reasonable measure, be the wealthiest single human being who has ever lived. He chose to spend it on books, scholars, mosques, and a single act of generosity so vast that it crashed an entire region's economy. The empire he built is gone, scattered across half a dozen modern nations and almost forgotten outside them. But the gold he poured into Cairo, into Mecca, into the libraries of Timbuktu, did something his successors could not. It made him impossible to